Welcome to Google Earth training for survey overlays. I'm Tim Hunter with Sharon Land Trust, and we're going to describe the process of creating a survey overlay in Google Earth. So who this is for? People who have basic understanding of Google Earth Pro and are interested in geolocating their surveys for use in Google Earth and cell phone apps like Map Plus. This is not for people who already have a digitized survey or a shapefile that was received from a surveyor.
So this is kind of what we're planning on creating today. It's basically a survey for the property that's overlaid on Google Earth, and it's been geo-calibrated to be about 15-foot accuracy, somewhere around there. So the reason why we're doing this is because town parcel bounds are often really inaccurate. Let me go ahead and show you what the town bounds actually look like for this parcel. And you can see here that the Emery property is way off. So we're looking at, 50, 60 feet of inaccuracy in some places, sometimes only like 10, 15, but you can really see the inaccuracy of town parcel data versus, actual survey parcel data that you geo-calibrate yourself. It also doesn't contain useful information like survey pin locations, stone walls, and other features. So if I'm walking on this property and I come in from here and I'm walking, I now can see on the survey that there's actually a stream here. So you can see that there's actually a stream. You can also see that there's an old woods road that's marked on the survey location for this property. It's actually outside of the property line here, but then it jumps in a little further to the south on this long section that's to the south. And you can see things like if I run into a wire fence, chances are that's the border along here. And this area shows up as a ledge. So there's a ledge there. If I walk over to here, I can see a stone wall. That's indicated on the survey map by that type of styling on the survey. There's a stone wall there. So these are all really, really useful things for people that are walking in the woods inside a parcel to understand where the borders are. And of course, it's also really important to know where your pins are. So here we know that there's a pin in a pile of stones. And if you do this properly, you can get to within 10 to 15 feet of these pins and flag them so that you know that they're safe, because that's kind of your legally identifiable border for your property. So super important.
So for the first thing you need to do is to grab your survey. And if you have a PDF of your survey, that's great. If you have an image of your survey, that's great. Just make sure that's high enough resolution that you can see details, fine details. If you don't have your survey, you can always go to your town's land use section of their website and go ahead and log in and search for your survey, and then go ahead and download the PDF. I'll show you, for instance, with Sharon, how to do that. We'll enter the town's land use records. And if you know so every survey that's filed with a town is attached with an ID. If you know the ID, that's great. If you don't know the ID, you just need to search for your name. So the deed will also tell you a reference to the survey for your property. I know that this particular survey it's instrument number 1392. So I'm going to go over to here and type in 1392. And here is the official map referenced on the deed for this property. And we'll go ahead and click on view. And this is the official town record of the survey. And once you grab this, we will go ahead and print and download it. I've already done that, but we have to do a little bit of work to get this into Google Earth. So the next step we're going to do once we've downloaded it is to convert it to an image. So we need to convert this PDF to a JPG or a PNG, some kind of image file. And to do that, I like to use the online image or PDF converters. So you can go ahead and click on, just type in JPG or PDF to JPG in Google, and you'll get a bunch of results. I love PDF is a great one. So when you click on this, go ahead and select your files, your PDF file, and it'll run you through the conversion process, and then it will let you download the image. And you don't have to use this program. You can open the PDF in Adobe Acrobat and use a snipping tool to save an image of the PDF. You can also use snipping tools built into a lot of operating systems to convert it. But basically, you just need to get an image from the PDF, an image that we can overlay in Google Earth. So now that you have your image, you'll see that the actual survey has a lot of white space, and this can be difficult for geo-calibrating the survey on Google Earth. So the next step is to trim the image. So we have the survey here. Go ahead and open your survey image in a photo editing program. You can use Microsoft Paint if you want, or some other open source program, but basically we want to trim out the white space on here to just include the borders of the survey, not the white space around it. And this is kind of what it looks like after you've trimmed out the white space. Now we have a little bit easier time when we're geo-calibrating this on Google Earth, and we don't have to deal with that white space. So now that we have the image and it's cropped, the next step is to go ahead and overlay it on Google Earth. Before we do that, let's go ahead and add a folder to our My Places so that we can keep our data organized. I've already created a folder for this property, and it's very easy to do to add a new folder to My Places. Just go ahead and click on My Places and then right click and add folder. That way all the data that we're going to be adding will be really well organized. So now that you've created a folder, let's go ahead and add a photo overlay. So now we're going to go ahead and try to locate your property as best you can by zooming in and panning on the map. I know where my property is pretty well, but if you don't know where your property is, you can go ahead and search for it at the upper left tool, the search tool here. Just type in the address and hit search, and it'll zoom you to the location. The next step is to kind of get an idea of where it is. If you're lucky enough to have a property that has roads on all four sides of the survey, you're golden. It's going to be really easy to calibrate. But if you're unlucky and you have a survey for a property that really only has like one road, like this one, and not very much in terms of easily identifiable control points around the edges of it, then you're in luck, because we're going to walk through how to do it here. So I've already created the survey here, but if you wanted to add a survey and a image overlay, all you have to do is click on, it's the fourth button over from the open close sidebar button. It looks like two squares, one on top of the other. And when you do that, it's going to ask you for a new image overlay. And you can call this whatever you want. We're just going to call it Emory. And here we can link to that image that you created, that cropped image. So go ahead and click on Browse and then find that document, that image, and go ahead and click on it. Once you do that, it's going to overlay that image on your screen, and you're not going to be able to see below it. And what we want to do now is to orient what we see on the survey to what we see on the ground on the satellite image. So it's really important to adjust your transparency slider so that it's about halfway. And once you do that, you'll end up with something like this. So here we can actually see the background pretty well. And if you have neighbors' driveways or something like that, you can actually see the driveway in the background, and you can see the driveway on the survey. That's really important, because when you're dealing with this, it's going to look something like this with the green handles on all four corners and on the sides, and a center corner here where you can move it around. And you can actually use this little handle here to orient the direction of the map. So try to get it into a fairly good location by looking at roads and things like that. And then the next step is control points. So what are control points? Control points are identifiable features on the survey that you can use to geo-calibrate it that you can also see on the background satellite image on Google Earth. So a couple really cool things about surveys is that if you've got a good surveyor, they'll usually mark telephone poles, which is really wonderful. And you can usually see telephone poles in the background on Google Earth. You also have streams, which are really nice. If you're lucky enough to have that. Stone walls are also identifiable, but it's a little bit more difficult. We'll go through that in a bit. And ledges, if you can see them on the satellite image, that's great. But roads and buildings and telephone poles are really useful. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we have our survey. We know a couple things about what we need to find. Let's try to find some telephone poles. So here you can see if we zoom in, we know that there's telephone poles along this road, and we know that the survey map has that information as well. So a couple things too is that you may not see it on this current satellite image because this is from 2024, but Google Earth has this wonderful feature that lets you look back in time and it will update the satellite image to a previous version. And that's that button here with a little clock that looks with an arrow that winds back. And if you keep on clicking back, you can actually get to something where you can see the telephone poles much more clearly. So we've got a bunch of interesting features here that may or may not match up to a telephone pole, but here we should have a telephone pole here, but you don't really see it, so let's keep on moving back and see if we can't find that pole. There it is. All right, so that's a telephone pole there. So what we need to do is go ahead and start collecting points for control points for this geo-calibration. So you need to add another folder just to keep things organized inside your property folder. And again, just right click and say add folder. I've created a control points folder here, and I've added a bunch of stuff. And I've added points for each pole. And that's really easy to do. All you have to do is click on the first button over here, the point tool. And when you click on this, it's going to pop up with a pop-up box, and you'll have the ability to move things around to right in the center of that pole. You want to get it on the ground, not on the pole. And then I like to change the icon for the point to make it a little bit easier to understand the center of it. So you can choose whatever you want, but I like circles for poles, just more easily understandable. So for that, now you have the poles in the control points. Other things you can add are things like streams. So if you can see the stream bed on the satellite image, you're really lucky. That's great. Here's a stream that I found, not necessarily on the satellite image, but on LiDAR, and we'll show you that in a second. But other things that you may or may not be able to see depending on the foliage of the survey, you can see things like a stone wall. And for stone walls, they're really, really useful. So I have things like ledges and walls and a bunch of other fun stuff here. Let's see. And I've already marked this as a line. And you can see I've done that by going ahead and clicked on the third icon over, the polyline tool. And once you click on that, it's going to open up a wither box that says, Google Earth new path. And you can literally just drag a line. And I like to shape these lines. If it's going to be a stone wall, I change the style and color to gray, and usually the thickness to something like 3 or 5 or something like that, just to easily see where that wall is on the map. So now that you've gotten a couple things, you may be wondering, okay, well, what happens if my satellite image is completely occluded by trees? How do I find those stone walls? So in a previous video, and I'll link to it here, we talked about things like the LiDAR overlay. And that's really fun because it allows you to identify things that you might not necessarily be able to see through the canopy. So we have a survey here that's really wonderful. We'll change this to what we have on the ground here. Say that this stone wall was not visible because of the trees. The wonderful thing about LiDAR is that you can actually see below the canopy. And for this one, in a second, we will be able to see a LiDAR image of, there we go. We'll see a LiDAR image of that stone wall. And you can go ahead and trace that, add it to your control points, add that stone wall. Even if you couldn't see it on the satellite image, the LiDAR image is accurate enough so that you can trace that stone wall. LiDAR is extraordinarily useful for this kind of stuff. So I highly recommend watching that video that I posted previously. So now that you've traced all of the control points, the next step is to orient your map. So we'll go to our survey and we will start to adjust it. So again, adjust the orientation so that the road matches up. You want to adjust the orientation of this so that things like this stream, you see the stream on the survey and we've traced the stream. So we want to just adjust these pieces so that that stream matches as closely as possible. We want to be able to find things on every corner that we can adjust. So again, making sure that those telephone poles match up and that these stone walls match up here. We just adjust back and forth, and you'll have to do this several times to get the most accuracy. But once you've adjusted those together, now you should be able to get a fairly accurate calibrated map. And that's fantastic. So once you're done with this, go ahead and click on OK in the edit image overlay, and you've got your calibrated survey map.